Mr. Martinez, hi, thank you for being here today. I have some questions for you. Where does your love of history stem from? Any teachers, classes that come to mind?
When I was in school, elementary school, junior high, high school, social studies was always my favorite subject. I wouldn't say that there was a particular teacher at the primary or secondary level that fueled my love of history. It was more the subject matter caught my interest, and I wanted to learn more about it. So there wasn't one particular history teacher, but when I got to college, I did have a professor in my U.S. history class, Dr. Mark C. Smith, who really did made history come alive to me in the way that he presented his lectures. So I would say that it wasn't really until I got to college that I really saw a history teacher teaching history in the right way.
Do you remember the exact moment that it just kind of came to you?
I think right from the beginning when I was a sophomore at UT, this is probably 1989, and I ended up loving history so much that I switched majors. I started off as an accounting major, but because of that professor, I started taking a bunch of history classes, and I just ultimately decided to change my major from accounting to history.
That's very interesting, and I've heard a lot of good things about this class, and I feel like your kids would even go as far as saying that you go the extra mile. Do you feel the same, or how do you feel about it?
Well, for me, the most important thing is to try to get the best out of the students. So I'll go, all out in terms of presenting lessons, and I try to do the best that I can for my kids so that they can ultimately achieve success, either at the end of the year with the EOC or with the AP US History exam.
And what do you feel like? Why do you feel that some students still maybe don't like history, whether in your class or outside of your class?
History can be very challenging because it's a lot of information, and the way that a teacher presents the material can be very boring and tedious sometimes. So I think ultimately, as a history teacher, you have to try to be innovative and creative in how you present lessons, incorporate music, incorporate art, incorporate as many different things to make connections, to help make connections for the students so that they can see that a lot of things are related. When you go watch a movie, you go watch Guardians of the Galaxy, you go watch The Avengers, you go watch whatever's playing, in pop culture. If you are wise to history, you're going to pick up on certain things that directors and producers are doing within those movies. So it ultimately comes down to how the teacher presents the material. You got to make it fun. You got to make it interesting.
And with that being said, what do you think makes this worthwhile, as a history teacher?
The subject itself?
What makes it worth the effort that you put into the class?
Well, history is always happening. We're seeing now with the Trump administration that if you have a very good background in history, you can see the direction in which the country is moving. And if you know your history, you can plan for the future. I think that's the main objective. That knowing your history will help you understand what's unfolding before your eyes as it happens.
Also, I've heard that you're interested in eventually teaching AP Art History.
I was thinking of doing AP Art History because not a lot of students I heard had signed up for AP US History for next year. But when I started looking at the exam, I thought that maybe I might have to take one or two classes in art history because that was not my major. But in looking at art history, I also was looking at AP European history. And AP European history is very similar to US history. So if I had to choose between AP art history and AP European history, I would probably lean towards European history because European history is a lot easier, I think.
Thank you. And also, well, with that being said, how do you feel that these classes like AP European History and AP Art History and AP US History, how do you feel that those extra classes enrich, the community and student body and just the school's curriculum?
I think the more AP classes that we can offer, the better for our students. If I can't do AP Art History, I would love for somebody else to do it because I can see how kids would be able to go on museum visits. You could raise money and take students to the different museums that we have in the state of Texas so they can learn to appreciate art and hopefully have a different perspective on why the visual arts are important to society.
And if your kids could take just one thing from your class, what would you like for them?
From my AP US History class, I think I would want my students to be involved in our society. It's going to be very rare that our country asks the students to do something for the country, but if you know your history, you're going to understand the importance, for example, of serving on juries. So I hope that as a result of taking my class, my students gain a sense of citizenship, that it is important to be actively involved, that you participate in elections, and that you let your voice be heard. And we live in a republic. We have representatives that are going to speak on our behalf, but they need your input as well. So hopefully, having taken my class, students gain an appreciation of the political process and the fact that it's important for Americans to be involved.
What things do you do to make this class more interesting for your students?
One of the things that I try to do at least once every 9 weeks is give opportunities for the students to be creative with hands-on projects, whether it's building a biplane when we're doing imperialism in World War I, or whether it's creating a rake for the progressive era when we did the muckrakers and we spoke of the muckrakers. And then also I do want students to do video projects as well for my class. And by affording students an opportunity to be creative, you see a different side of the students, and sometimes you see how the student is better able to understand a particular concept if they actually have an opportunity to do a hands-on activity.
Once again, sir, Mr. Martinez, we would like to thank you for taking the time to be interviewed today, and we really appreciate it and all you do for the school.
Thank you. You're welcome.